Hello everyone and welcome back to GPVWC Super League, and this is the Italian Grand Prix, round 12 of this 16-round championship. It is so good to be back. I have missed everyone so much, and I've missed GPVWC, and I've missed you, Ryan. How are you doing, Ryan?
I am very well, just trying to cope with the heat in the UK at the moment.
Yes.
All good on my front. I mean, it's been a long time. It's been, how many weeks?
Well, since Belgium, probably, I have no idea. I haven't even been able to keep up.
Both since Belgium, but since you were last in the commentary box, how many weeks?
Oh god, yeah, so that would have been Silverstone, I think, so that will be about 8. But yeah, it is good to be back, that's for sure. It is extremely hot though. My room is currently registering 31 degrees Celsius. And
Seems like we've lost Caitlin there with the microphone.
Really?
I'm not too sure what's going on, but it's been a long 8 weeks, that's for sure, since we've had Caitlin around.
I think that might be on your end, Ryan. Do you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
well,
there we go.
There we go. Oh, so you can hear. Okay, that's good. Yeah, no, I was just saying it's registering about 31 degrees Celsius here. On track in Monza, it seems to be quite hot as well. The ambient temperature about 28 degrees, which is still, you know, proper Italian summery temperature. Track temperature about 44 degrees, which is again something to contend with. You don't want the tyres to overheat. Tyre wear was pretty good in the Formula Sprint 2 race the other day. We really didn't have to worry about it much at all, and here at the Autodromo Nazionale Monza, there you go, you have to worry a lot more about your brakes and your engine, because those are what are being tested here. The only real corners on the track that test your tyres are the Parabolica and then the Ascari bends, but there you go. There's a look at the live standings, so we're having a look at exactly who sits where. Jake Dennehan currently leads the championship by 14 points over Tom Stevens, and they are a considerable way over anyone else in the championship. Dennehan has 5 wins to his name so far, Tom Stevens has 3, and Jan Grankvist, who sits in 3rd place, is yet to score a victory so far in this season, but surely it's only a matter of time as he's picked up 4 podium finishes so far. Jukka-Pekka Lally sits 4th in the championship, then the winner of the Belgian Grand Prix, Robin Pansar, and that was a great win too. I was watching it from my holiday destination. Tomasz Vok is 6th in the championship, and Ryan, we were just talking about how he needs a little bit of luck, because we know that Tomasz is quick, and he's got close. He had a podium back in Bahrain, but yeah, it's been a little while now. Luke Maguire sits 7th in the championship, having won the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Adam Maguire sits 8th in the championship, having won the Australian Grand Prix. Then it's Daniel Stepkowski and David Fidok, the rest of the top 10 in this very competitive championship. And we have some brand new drivers to contend with today as well. So we're currently on board with David Feidock, who is not brand new by any means. But two drivers are making their debut today from what I've seen. Fabian Ballet will be starting for Green Stripes. He's done Formula Sprint 1 in the past. He's also done Superlights. His best Superlights result is 9th place at Hungary last year. And then Carlos Martin will make his debut for Holland Racing Team. And he's done a fair bit of racing in the past as well, but not with Super League. This is his very first Super League race. He was a championship contender at the start of this Formula Sprint 1 championship and has had 4 wins total in that, although unfortunately had to miss the Belgian Grand Prix, which has set him back a little way. But here he is, Carlos Martin, just about to complete a qualifying lap, which puts him in 14th position. And before I hand back over to you, Ryan, for the actual qualifying session, we do have a very exciting bit of news, which is the return of a certain Jarl Tyen. Now, I remember Jarl from when I started commentating GPVWC Super League way back in 2017. He's a very strong driver from what I can remember. He won 3 Grand Prix in the 2018 season, was 5th overall in the championship that year, and he returns after 2 years away from 3 years away from the sport actually, because his last race was the 2020 Belgian Grand Prix. So welcome back, Jarl. He will be racing for the Epic Racing Team today. Ryan, we've just seen the first 4 minutes of the qualifying session. Looks to be the same old story with Jake Dennehan up there, the Maguires up there too, but Jake Dennehan I don't see just yet.
Well, yeah, he's staying in 2nd place, so...
Oh, sorry, he's just gone up there, hasn't he?
Yeah, I don't think that's too much of a problem for him at the moment.
Sorry, I meant Tom Stevens. Where's Tom? Oh, he's
Tom
20.
Stevens. Yeah,
no lap yet.
So he had to complete a lap. That's the 2nd time as we ride on board with Mark Luther that I've seen somebody actually clatter that first curb and it's sending them wide in the middle part of the chicane. Clearly not the ideal line on curves in these kind of cars. Are not too favourable. However, going back a point, really, really good to see. Well, first of all, actually, a second Epic Racing car out there, and to see some, quality back in the seat. We've missed Fabio this season with all of his technical difficulties and whatever else is potentially going on, but they need a little bit of consistency in that second seat. And I mean, look, he's already matching Jeff at the moment, which is fantastic effort, really, considering that he's had a bit of time out. I'm not sure if he's been still racing elsewhere, but it's the first time I've seen his name in GPVWC in a long time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and consistency is exactly what Epic Racing Team needs right now. They haven't had 2 cars in the points at all this season, and in fact the last 2 races they haven't had 2 cars whatsoever. Jarl will be their 8th driver for just 2 cars this season, which is quite a harrowing statistic there. They've had Jeffrey Fournier driving most of the races in 1 car, and then they've had various outings from Fabio Sixter, Hugo Poom, Joe Herlock, Alex Lahou, Alex Ragosa, David Yunt, and now of course Jarl Tyen. So that is quite a lot for just 2 cars there. And hopefully they finally settled on someone they can rely on here. But anyway, here's Matthias Moos about to complete his first flying lap. He goes up to 4th position. We know he's fast. I'm most interested at this point in seeing what Tom Stevens can do, because he is the 2nd place driver in this championship, and most likely to challenge the top drivers today. Not that he isn't himself a top driver, of course, but Jake Dennehan has been definitely the favourite recently. Around the final corner of this one particular lap he goes. It's nothing spectacular, I'm afraid to say, but he will come across the line and it should put him within the top 10, and it is 10th position as I say that, just about half a second as we stand off of Luke Maguire, Ryan.
Just another name that I've not mentioned, that I've noticed there, Dylan Platt making a return to the series back with Mode Auto Concepts, which is good to see. He did a few races earlier on in the season, and good to see him making a return. But yeah, second laps are starting to fly in, thinking fast now. A few people running different strategies depending on if they've aborted previous laps. but we're starting to see a little bit of movement. But just wait till it gets to that under 3-minute sort of mark. It'll be crazy, and the entire leaderboard will be upside down all over again.
You're absolutely right, and Dylan Platt did 3 races earlier this season, and he was in the points in all of them, with 2 of those being top 10 finishes too. So Dylan, we know, can drive as well, and he is also within half a second of the leader. Tom Stevens now pushed back outside of the top 10. Here comes Stefan Rohr, former champion of course, around the Curva Parabolica, also known as the Curva Parabolica Alboreto. Named after, of course, Michele Alboreto, who won here in 1988. Stefan Rohr goes across the line and does not improve his position. Here's Filip Puškaj, yet another former champion here. And actually, I should check the statistics. I wonder how many former winners of the Italian Grand Prix we have on the grid today, because that's another thing that we don't know of by heart. Stefan Rohr has actually won it himself in the past. He won it in 2021. Filip Puškaj has a big movement there. Looks as if K himself won here back in and Dean. Is Florian Gaia here today? I don't think I've seen him. Unfortunately, we are missing quite a few cars. Because Florian Gaia, who's racing this championship, whoa, Puškaj is really pushing it. But yeah, Gaia has won here in the past. There have been some other big names as well. Yannick Bock, of course, won it last year, but unfortunately he is not here today due to what happened to Evolution earlier this season. Fabio Sixter won it in 2019, so it's also a shame that he's not here. I tell you what though, probably the most interesting statistic that's just popped up on my screen is who won it all the way back in 2008. A certain Mr. William Panisi was the Grand Prix winner that time, and it was his only outing, or his only Grand Prix win in his entire GPVWC career.
Wow. Didn't know that. It's almost like now you forget that some of these guys even raced back in the day.
Oh yeah. It was very different back in 2008, but Panisi did it.
Yeah. You learn something new every day. It has been pointed out as well that we do have one person running on mediums in this session. That being Tom Stevens having a go. Seeing if he can qualify on that harder compound of tyre, trying to go for a little bit of a strategic move there. I'm expecting ones and 2 stops today. Like you touched on, it's not the most abrasive track, but you know it's still high wearing, so I'm probably leaning on a 2 stop. I'd imagine most people doing today.
Yeah, that's very good stuff. Now, if you're wondering why Tom Stevens is on the medium tyres, his goal here will be to get into the top 10. Because if he can get into the top 10, he can start on the medium tyres and have an advantage, possibly strategically, if he feels that is the best way to go. Of course, if he qualifies outside of the top 10, he can still start on the medium tyres, but further down the grid. Now, if he was to start, or if he was to qualify on softs, and he was to qualify in the top 10, he would not be able to start on the medium tyres. He would be locked in on the softs, and if he feels that the mediums are the best way to start the race, then that is what he is trying to avoid. So Tom Stevens going for a slightly alternative strategy even as early as qualifying here, but to make his strategy worthwhile, he needs to put that car in the top 10. Otherwise, it might just bite him.
He's massively down on this lap as well, so... Oh, we see Jarl jump up to P2, sorry.
Look at him go! Wow. And it's a fastest third sector of everyone as well. So Jarl Tern, 3 years out of the game, he comes back, and that is quite a qualifying performance for a car that was not expecting to be particularly competitive today. I thought I saw someone go for a big spin there, but anyway. Here's Stefan Rohr once again, a little further down, the winner in 2021. And yeah, I knew that Jarl would be good. He has unfinished business in GPWC. He had that one very, very strong year in 2018, but even then he didn't drive every single race. And I really feel that if he is to do a full season he is going to be a real contender. Whether he will or not, whether that's in his plan, is yet to be seen, but I think it would be fantastic for the competitiveness of this league. Meanwhile, we now do have a Pescara car in the field. I was unfortunately getting ready to say that Pescara have not made a showing today, but Giuseppe Lino has shown up in a sole Pescara ADG car. He is on the grid for the day, and that means that every team is in attendance, even if unfortunately Pescara have only brought along one vehicle. Some of the teams took a little while to show up. Some of them were probably doing the test that runs concurrently with the end of the practice session, but whatever the case, good to see every team in attendance today nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that we don't get to see a full grid, but it's better to have at least one car appearing from some of the teams. So good, nice that we've got a Pescara car in the grid. But this is now where we're going to get into the real thick of it in qualifying. The last sort of 2 minutes, people are going to be making that one last really big push, and for people like especially Tom Stevens, it's going to be a make or break. I'd be interested to see if he's switched on to the soft or if he's continued with the mediums, because as he's sitting at the moment, he's not going to get any advantage from sitting in P13. You see a lot of people doing very slow out laps, trying to keep the temps down in the tyres clearly. But it's a big couple of minutes for some big names. Look at Pushka and Fidok down in, the bottom 3. Who else we got? Matthew Williams down there, Tom Harvey down there, Duka Pegalalu as well. His teammate's up in P5 and he's down in P18. But again, I say P18, but that's only 0.6 of a second off.
That's very true. Now, unfortunately for Tom, he doesn't have time to go onto the soft tyres at this point, so he's got to commit to it, and he's got to just put in an absolute flyer on his last attempt. Here's Zolt Shukes now, Adonis Engineering car, flying through the second of the Lesmoods. That is a deceptively difficult corner there, especially since depending on how you get Lesmood 1, depending on how you take the line, you can actually arrive at Lesmood 2 at a vastly different speed depending on the lap that you're going through it on. Zolt himself has had some strong results so far this year. A 5th place at Australia was his best, and 17th in qualifying won't necessarily appeal to him so much, so he's pushing on. Around the Curva Parabolica, he will probably meet the checkered flag this time. Might just about scrape through, but it won't really matter. And across the lane he goes. Checkered flag does come out, and he goes up to P7, so not a bad lap whatsoever for Zolt Shukes. Chris Shepherd here had the fastest first sector of all, but I think he had a big twitch in the Ascari there. I think I just caught that out of the corner of my eye. Chris Shepherd having a massive slide through Ascari, and that could cost him a 10th or so. Around the Curva Parabolica he comes. Robin Pansar is the fastest in Sector 2 so far, the winner of the last Grand Prix. Luke Maguire is the car that they've got to beat still. He's on another lap, but he's down in the first sector. Probably won't improve again. Shepherd did improve, but only to 7th. He did seem to mess it up in that middle and third sector. Robin Pansar around the final corner now accelerates to the start-finish line. Where's this going to put him? And across the line, he stays P9. Okay. Jake Denahan is up in Sector 2. His first sector was decent, not the best. Grankvist towards the line now. Matthias Moose will be in a hot pursuit. Grankvist stays 5th. Here comes Luke Maguire to complete his session. I don't think that's an improvement. It isn't. So he does not improve. Your Tyron's in the pits. Jake Denahan across the line, and Denahan snatches it. At the last minute, Denahan will snatch pole position. Actually, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Here comes Matthias Moose. He goes 3rd, but Denahan has indeed snatched pole position at the very end of this qualifying session. And more importantly for him, his championship rival Tom Stevens has got into the top 10 now. He is P8, so a decent performance there from Tom Stevens. But yeah, Denahan first, Maguire second, then Moose, Tyne and Grankvist. Stevens is 8th, and we've got some improvements further down the field as well. I think Philip Pushke is going to be the last driver across the line. Never mind, I think he's bailed out of that one. So here is the order then. Denahan on pole by 0.5 of a second, followed by Luke Maguire, Matthias Moos, Jarl Tyne, what a return. Jan Grankvist P5, then Tomasz Wok, Adam Maguire, Tom Stevens, Daniel Stepkowski, and Chris Shepherd are the top 10. And what a relief for Tom Stevens that he did get into the top 10 there, otherwise he might as well have just bolted on some soft tyres. Further down, we've got the Adonis cars, Schukes and Panzer, then Machete, Fournier, Schluter, Platt, Ruhl, Lalu, Martin and Williams, so Martin P19 on his GPVWC qualifying debut. And then the other 5 cars in the session were Thomas Harvey, Philip Pushke, Fabian Ballet, so Ballet will be 23rd on his debut. And then David Feidock and Giuseppe Lino round out the 25-strong grid, with the Pescara ADG car, unfortunately, quite familiarly at the back of the field, Ryan.
He won't be right at the back of the field because Chris Shepherd's got a back of the grid penalty.
That makes sense.
Everybody from P11 is going to move 1 space forward, and Chris is going to go right to the back because he escaped and went back to track in qualifying. It's a bar, so yeah, good quality. You know, usually a few times coming towards the end of the session, but it seemed like everybody went faster there right at the end. You know, we talk about the track development and, you know, the rubber and the grip peaking towards the end, but it was extremely evident, and especially when, you know, the top 10 was split by like, what, 3 tenths maybe? Somewhere, maybe even a bit less. Margins around here are tiny. Absolutely tiny. Really impressive.
Absolutely, great stuff. The I think it was the top 22 top separated by a second there. That is what we like to see, especially since, I mean, Monza is a short track, sure, but it is a track that can separate cars out. It requires unique setup and car handling capabilities. And unfortunately, some of the drivers at the back weren't quite able to keep up, but even so, yeah, it was the top 22 separated by a second. The top 15 were separated by 0.5 second, separated by 4 tenths, in fact. And honestly, I think that in terms of race winners, you're looking all the way back to maybe Tom Stevens, considering that he's starting on another set of tyres. But of course, we have a long way to go in this race. There are the driver standings, and that is the team standings, sorry. Driver standings. And that's a brand new graphic, I think, showing their individual points totals from each round. Now, you may be wondering why at some round the top points are 26 and at other rounds they are 25. That's because you get 1 extra point for setting fastest lap in the race, providing you finished in the top 15. So you can see, for example, that at round 2, Jake Denahan scored 26 points when a win is only worth 25 points, and that is because he claimed the extra fastest lap point there, which may end up being so crucial in a championship that has been very back and forth so far. Looks as if Robin Panzer leapt up the field last time out, and that makes a lot of sense because of course he won for the very first time in GPVWC Super League. And Tomasz Wok, Luke Maguire and Adam Maguire were the drivers who lost out in the process. All of them did still score points, but not quite enough to keep them in the running. I also find it fascinating how both Maguires are on exactly the same number of points at this part of the season as well. I know they're identical twins, but do you really have to be that identical, guys? Crazy.
It's an interesting spot, actually. I didn't even realise that. There's been a lot of DNFs between them two guys as well. When you look at a lot of zeros there, but also, you know, you look at all the 20s and 25s seem to be at the top, and then you look down and, you know, both the Maguires have had a win and a second even for Luke as well. So it's wide open, you know, everyone here could be a winner.
I tell you what though,
depends on being their day.
The similarities between Adam and Luke's season doesn't end there. They both have an average finishing position, an average points haul of 8.3 per round, which I guess makes sense because obviously 83 points in 10 races. They both have 1 win each. They both have 1 podium each, that is non-winning podium each. And they both missed the Hungarian Grand Prix, possibly for the same reason, I don't know. But yeah, quite similar seasons there for those guys, and I suppose that does make a lot of sense. But there you go. The thing that you've got to look out for with championships like this is momentum, where drivers don't really consider what happened way back at the start of the season. It's their recent results that they really have to count on. Of course, the main driver to look out for in that sense of the word is Robin Panzer, because since Azerbaijan, his results have been phenomenal. He's been in the top 10 every single time he's finished since Azerbaijan, and of course, last time out, he got his very first GPVWC victory. So I think Panzer is a driver who will be coming here today with a lot of confidence. Denahan will probably have more confidence than Stevens, because even though they're both on massive podium streaks, Denahan has not yet finished off the podium at all this season. And his last 4 races, so since he came back from his break at the Spanish Grand Prix, have been slightly better than Tom Stevens' last 4 races combined. And you've also got to look, if we're looking further back down the field at drive and teams that have started scoring to the season other than earlier, Red Archer have taken a big step up, and I don't think that's any coincidence that it's happened right as Matthias Moos has come back from a break, and also Green Stripes have started really flying with Mark Schluter in particular. But even Fabian Schierzik, who's been, I have to admit, not quite as impressive so far this season, he scored a points finish at the last round. So if momentum is something that we have to look out for, I think Green Stripes will be pleased with that.
In my opinion, it's Red Archer having a good go. Like you say, it has been perfectly timed with Matthias coming back and being more available, and putting himself on P3 in that session is only going to help. So
definitely.
The one thing that the likes of Denon's got to look out for is a lot of the people around him have got nothing to lose. You know, you look at Matthias and Maguire and you think, if I was them, I'd send it for a race win. Whereas Jake's going to be, you know, double checking in his mirrors because he doesn't want to lose points. He's got a bit of a gap, but it's not big enough. And with Stevens going to be on an alternate strategy as well, his spotter's going to have to be pretty honest, making a good decisions for him to. I assume that Tom's going to go for a one-stop with that strategy, so he's going to have to really drag them tyres out if he's starting on the softs, or make a brave call and go for a confident 2. But again, everyone's got their own strategy, everyone drives differently. We'll just have to see, and we'll try and keep our eye out. But it can be quite difficult when you've got 25 cars going around the track to follow everybody's strategy.
Absolutely. Now, the great thing about this race is that because of different strategies and because of such a close qualifying session, there are so many people who could feasibly win the race. Now, you're mentioning there that there are drivers with absolutely nothing to lose. Jarl Tyen certainly springs to mind as he flies onto our screen now, actually having a mock fight with one of the THR drivers there, which is awesome to see, because needless to say, he's going to be racing both of those guys very hard today. Tom Parker actually predicted a Jarl Tyen win in the YouTube chat, saying Jarl is winning this race, he has nothing to lose. And I fully understand where that's coming from, because Jarl, having not been a part of this championship so far, and coming in after 3 years away, will have absolutely nothing to lose, and also nothing to prove either. So he's really going to care about just driving a clean race and doing all that he can. He wants to come here and win, because why the heck not? Regan Boyne as well, saying, I told him to win before he left the call, and he's 100% going to do that. So Jarl Tyen, one of the favourites today. That's about Jake, apparently. Never mind. My apologies. But yes, Jake Denahan, also another one of the favourites, because of course he is. He's on pole position and he's the championship leader. As well as that, Matthias Pishan has noted that Tom Stevens did very well to qualify 8th on mediums. He could still be a contender for the win today, as I mentioned before. But I'm actually going to cast attention onto Tomasz Vok right now. Not just to get you excited, Ryan, but I think Tomasz had a great qualifying there. He was P6. And I think this is exactly the kind of circuit that suits him. Tomasz is a relatively aggressive racer, actually, but I've always noticed he's good on the brakes. I think that's one of his best one of his best features, and I've noticed that in the past because I've always compared his overtakes and his defensive maneuvers to the old school Daniel Ricciardo back in the Red Bull days. And you know where Ricciardo is especially good? Monza.
That's a compliment, thank you. Not biased at all.
Was directed at Thomas Schwab, but you can take
yeah,
it if you like.
I mean towards the team and towards Thomas, yeah. But you know, he's in good form and he's done a lot of laps around Monza recently, having off the back of a podium in VEC around here like a week ago or something like that. So yeah, I think
my
it's
point
a track
is,
that we all like as well, or especially he likes.
And my point is that from 6th place on the grid, I think he has a chance of winning this race. What do you make of that?
As long as the people behind him don't put too much pressure on him, if say there becomes a bit of a gap between 6th and 7th and he's sat in 6th, he can just sit there and just wait. He can just sit in the train, in the DRS train, saving his tyres and wait for somebody else to pounce, or he can pounce first. And we've seen the undercuts being typically strong this season. And you either have to undercut or massively overcut. So yeah, he's in a good position, I think, for the race. Not too far away.
Exactly, and that's especially common at a circuit like this, where DRS trains can form quite easily. You want to be able to undercut people, and we've seen in other categories this year that the undercut is especially powerful here at Monza. Now, you know that I'm a sucker for statistics, so I was just looking up Tomasz's previous results here at Monza, and he's actually been 6th the last 2 years, so it's ironic that he was 6th again in qualifying just then. He DNF'd here in 2020, but then again it was only his 2nd Super League race, and sad to say I don't think he qualified 6th on that occasion, because that would have been very ironic. No, he was Tomasz what? Anyway, whatever. Doesn't matter. I'm looking at results from 3 years ago just because I'm a statistics nerd. Apparently he qualified 19th on that occasion. But it was only his 2nd Super League race, and since then he's been 6th 2 years running, and 6th again in qualifying. Coincidence? I think not. And I think that even though the connotations for 3 6s might not be great, I think he is going to have a devilishly good performance here today. Here's the circuit then, Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, also known as the Temple of Speed, due to being the highest average speed circuit on the calendar. Not particularly high speed corners, unless you count the last sector and the Alfa Romeo Ascari chicane. But the straights seem to go on forever, and then you have a heavy braking zone, and then it's right back on the accelerator again. It makes it potentially the shortest Grand Prix on the calendar. The shortest Grand Prix in Formula One history was recorded here way back in 2003. That is the shortest full distance Formula One Grand Prix, and I wouldn't be surprised if the shortest full distance GPVWC race was also set at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, because, as I said, it is extremely fast. Still do the same sort of distance as at other tracks. 53 laps around the 5.8 kilometer circuit. That takes us up to about 310 kilometers, and I haven't just done the calculations. 310 kilometers, or as close as you can get it, is the official Grand Prix distance. And it's going to be quite an affair here, with plenty of slipstreaming, possibly some DRS trains forming, and that happens when the car in front is too fast to pass in a straight line and everyone gets bunched up behind. That can absolutely happen here, and definitely make sure that you're looking out for that from a strategic point of view as well as just a spectacle point of view. Now the warm-up is over, so we just have a couple of minutes until the start of this race. Some of those will be taken up by a formation lap. Right now the car's just making their way to the grid, and this is where the tension builds. Ryan, this is so good. GPVWC is back.
GPVWC is back, and it'll be a good one. I'm predicting it. I mean, in any form of motorsport at Monza, turn one is always something to behold. It's Is it the tightest? I think I'm pretty sure it's the tightest corner that we'll have on the calendar. And it's just it it can either be hilarious or it can be amazing to watch. And I'm going to say that it's going to be amazing to watch. It's going to be nice and clean. Everyone's going to make it out the other side, and we're going to have a fantastic race.
Oh yeah, it's one of the longest runs down to turn 1 on the calendar. If I remember correctly, and this is only off the top of my head, I think it's the second longest behind Spain, but very, very close to that indeed. The lap time that you're looking out for today, if they are going to set a GPVWC lap record, is a 1:19.5. That was set all the way back in 2014 by Lucas Euler. But in the meantime, let's take a look at the starting lineup for this race once again. It'll change ever so slightly due to Chris Shepherd's penalty. So Denahan still starts on pole alongside Luke Maguire. Both of those drivers have won races so far this season. Matthias Moos is third, Jarl Tyen is fourth. What a return this will be for him. Jan Grankvist is fifth, followed by Tomasz Vok, who I was just hyping up, hopefully for you, Ryan, not over-hyping him. Then it's Adam Maguire and Tom Stevens. Ninth place will be Daniel Stepkowski. Zolt Schuks moves up to P10, and then it's Robin Panzer and Ruben Machedi, the top 12 drivers as we talk. Jeffrey Fordier is P13, then it's Mark Schluter, Dylan Platt, and Stefan Ruhl. Not a great qualifying performance from the driver who'd won here 2 years ago. 17th place is Jakob Egalalu, then it's Carlos Martin on his debut, out-qualifying his teammate. Matthew Williams will be 19th, and then it is the other Holland Racing Team car of Thomas Harvey. Philip Pushke, P21, he won here back in 15. Fabian Ballet makes his debut today. David Fidok and Giuseppe Lino. And the final car on the grid will be Chris Shepherd, who will start from the very back, simply due to a penalty that carries over from the last race. So just a few corners to go on this track now, although a full sector, because of course this track is mainly straights. And you're absolutely right, Ryan, the run down to turn 1 is going to be very difficult. They've got to be jostling for position while also being careful not to leave their braking too late. And we've seen in plenty of categories in the past that there can be quite a crunch up heading down into turn 1, as every car finds exactly what the accordion effect means. Jake Denahan will be the first to arrive. Will everyone behind him pay attention? Will everyone behind him be sensible? We will find out in just a few moments' time. So heading to the grid, there you see the tyres for this race. Stevens and Schuks, the only two drivers in the top 10 starting on mediums. Schuks slightly lucky to have been elevated to that position by Shepherd's penalty. Jakob Egalalu will be the top driver of the hard bound up tyre. A few more drivers on hards further back. Chris Shepherd electing to fight his way through on softs from the very start of the race. That is a little optimistic because he's got a lot of traffic up ahead of him. But if he can keep his softs fresh until he passes those cars, it won't really matter too much. Here he comes to the grid now in the Red Archer car, as you can see on the halo, www.redarcher.eu. They stop in the grid position, so now all we have to do is wait for the 5 red lights to illuminate and then extinguish, and we will be underway for 53 laps of the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. There are the lights, you got 4 and 5. And it's go from Monza. Jake Denahan dumps the clutch, and that's a good start. It didn't look quite so quick from Luke Maguire. Matthias Moos will be alongside him down into turn 1 as the field fans out in the background. Now here is the braking zone. Does everyone make it through? Glide between Moos and Maguire. And further back, everyone's still pointing in the same direction. No front wings going flying just yet. It's Denahan, Maguire and Moos. Tyen has been demoted now by Grankvist, so Grankvist is up into 4th position. We're side by side further back. Tomasz Vok is in there, and that is that Tom Stevens making up a place already. P7 now, so a decent start. That's exactly what he needed to do, and now he's just got to hold steady. There's Carlos Martin in his very first Super League start, making up some places. To the inside of that Mood Auto Concepts car he goes, and out through the second Lesmo. Looks as if the Edge cars have dropped to the very back of the field now. The Stax cars, my apologies, have dropped to the very back of the field. Vidok and Pushkate not getting a good start to this one, and now down the back straight, I suppose it is, even though there's only one corner between this straight and the start-finish straight. They all fly, and in the future there will be DRS enabled heading out of this corner. Not quite yet, but it's not going to matter for Jan Grankvist, because look at the overspeed he's got from the back of Matthias Moose's car. He flies through now. He'll have the help from Maguire's slipstream up ahead as well, and he's going to arrive at that corner at quite a rate of knots and run slightly wide for his troubles as well, but he has still made the move stick. So after the first lap, it is Denahan leading from Maguire and Grankvist. And the two that we're looking at now are Mark Schluter and Robin Panzer fighting over P12, Ryan.
I'm wondering what they've put in that Super Venturi. That was ridiculous. No DRS as well. That was insane. I'm confused. I'm surprised there'd be that much disparity in the wings around here, to be honest. Because somebody goes straight on.
Looks as if David Vidok and Fabian Ballet have been involved in that somehow, and unfortunately Philip Pushke came into the pits at the end of the first lap, so presumably either got a penalty or lost his front wing or something along those lines. Now we're going to see what happened here with Fabian Ballet, who gets absolutely sandwiched between Vidok and the car ahead of them. And I don't think that was any fault of Ballet's, unfortunately, because there's not really much he can do about that, as he just gets run into. Now the ironic thing from that image is that the car already looked like it was rotating, so I reckon he ran into the car ahead of him at exactly the same moment that Vidok ran into the back of him. But whatever the case, I expect a penalty to come Vidok's way if that is reported, because he came from a long way back. And now look at Jan Grankvist, talking of a long way back, straight to the inside of Maguire, and you're absolutely right, he's had his week today, because there he goes, P2 now from 5th on the grid.
Wow. Quick car. Doing very well, keeping his nose clean as well while he's at it. I see Chris Shepard's made up a few places as well. I think Chris started on the soft because he probably had to, qualifying inside the top 10, even though he got a back of grid. So I think his hand's been forced there, but the soft tyre is going to help him, as we're going to see here. Ooh,
but not if they come together. That was a big slide, bang on the exit. Look at that. He gets through though, he's on the outside, and I'm sure that the Mood Auto Concepts car of Dylan Platt will let him go there. And through goes Chris Shepard into P19.
Yeah, I mean, not the tidiest from either party, did a little bit of contact, but made it through okay, but really hard charging Jan Grankvist here. I mean, the gap at the start of the lap was like 8 or 9 tenths, he's brought it down to half a second. And we're getting to the next straight. Is this going to be 3 overtake in 3 laps?
Is he going to challenge for the lead now? Jan Grankvist, he's within half a second of Jake Denahan heading for the straight. He will have the DRS because that is available to him now, as it was last lap. New best lap time, no surprise there, and he's heading to the inside. Oh, not quite. I thought he was going to go for it there. He was heading right up to the back of the car ahead, and Maguire there. Oh, and there's contact, and Moose goes around. So Moose has come together with, was that Jarl Tyen potentially? Tyen was definitely there, although I couldn't quite see if it was him that made contact with Moose. So Maguire is 3rd, the other Maguire is 4th.
With a very illegal move.
Still struggling to get going again. It looks as if Jarl Tyen did just run into the back of Matthias Moose. I've just seen it on the stream. And yet again, there was a little twitch from Moose as well as he approached the braking zone, so I'm not entirely convinced that he also didn't run into the back of Luke Maguire. So there's a fair amount of misjudging going on here, with drivers running into the back of each other just like that. That was not safe for work, and around goes Matthias Moose's car. He's now down in P23 with only the 2 struggling Stax cars behind him.
I think the biggest gainer there was Adam Maguire, just straight lining the chicane, even though he wasn't involved in the incident. And it managed to overtake Jarl as well while he was at it. That was weird. But that was really, Matthias he'll be foaming. He only made it 3 laps and he was taken out, which is really not a good day again for an Archer, man. I mean,
Grankvist is going to go for it. Look at this. He's got the DRS open and he flies through. Jan Grankvist is taking the lead on just the 6th lap of this race. Through goes Jarl Tyen into 4th place. I'm afraid I think that what happened last lap will be on his mind at this point because it was his fault. But he does get up to 4th position now, past Adam Maguire. But Jan Grankvist is up 4 positions. That's more than anyone else, down to Chris Shepherd, who started from the back. Jan Grankvist up 4 positions, and they're the most important positions too, because right now he leads this Grand Prix.
I'm so surprised. Where's this pace come from? I mean, it's amazing to watch. I just can't believe it. I mean, the overtakes into turn 1 have been amazing as well. We saw in real life people were struggling to make the moves actually happen into turn 1, but he's on an absolute flyer, and I'm even interested now to see if Jake's going to be able to hold on to him with the DRS or not. That car looks like a rocket ship in a straight line, but equally he could be. But I doubt he will be using up all of his push to pass. He's not a daft driver. This has got to be raw pace, surely.
Kaikera in the YouTube chat says, I have no idea what's inside Jan's car, but that's amazing. Did he, like, forget to fuel up or something? Now, wouldn't that suck? I mean, I don't think that's likely, but I do think that he's used a fair amount of push to pass and raw talent so far in this race, and we'll see how that fares him later on. Denham was able to stick with him down that straight, but I tell you what, the Super Venturi does appear to be a rocket ship. Aviation Chad says, I like what I'm seeing. Josh Downard, hopefully in a joking way, says he's got to be hacking, smacking my head. But yes, indeed, I think that this is raw pace from Jan Grankvist and raw skill, as into the corner the other Super Venturi car of Jukka-Pekka Laulu makes up a place on Giuseppe Lino. And that's one thing we haven't really considered yet. It might not be the Super Venturi that is particularly strong here, but Jan himself, because his teammate Jukka-Pekka, who of course very good, is unfortunately languishing in P20.
Yeah, and it's not like well, he might have had an incident, but he didn't have a great qualifying either. I mean, he's on the hard tyres now, so he's going to struggle against the mediums and softs around him, but yeah, he wasn't particularly quick in qualifying. Definitely been Jan on top out of them two guys on this occasion, and he's doing a good job at holding off Jake. Jake being he's able to hold on within that second for now, and at the end of the day, you know, like I said earlier, Jake's only really going to be looking back at that P6 Tom Stevens, because I've just seen posted in the Discord server that Tom and Jake are the only people mathematically in with a chance, as well as we see is Jarl going to make a move.
Oh, it's a late defensive manoeuvre. Jarl almost loses control with the DRS wide open and the throttle planted. He is potentially not going to be particularly happy with that late move from Luke Maguire, but I tell you what, I think that might have been just on the ragged edge, having only seen it once, I should say. But yeah, very, very close stuff there between Luke Maguire and Jarl Tyen, fighting over that 3rd position. Jarl clearly did not expect Luke Maguire to move over and defend that place quite so late on in the straight, and to be honest, I didn't either. That got the heart rate up. Jarl's already had one incident there today, and that was very nearly another one. Now here's a replay. Hopefully this isn't another incident for Philip Pushke, because his mental resources must be running slightly low right now, having had 2 big incidents so far in this race. Here he comes through that's a laggy problem there. And I'm not convinced that something dramatic did actually happen there. I think that on his screen everything will be fine, and he will know absolutely nothing about what we just saw there. But anyway, on with the race. Pushke is in fact still in the race. There's Tom Stevens taking a look at Adam Maguire. There's no real point going through into the Parabolica unless it's the last lap, because you'll just get the DRS on the next straight, and it's much, much easier to overtake here, as Jarl Tyen is about to demonstrate. And Tyen does get the move done on Jake Dennehan this time around, and in fact Tom Stevens has also got past Adam Maguire. So as one THR makes up a place, the other one loses a place, and now they're together on the road. That's a big dive. Ooh, are they going to see him? Chris Shepherd with a slight touch. Side by side with Thomas Harvey and Matthew William is the Marood car involved in that one. And Shepherd does get the move done. Very late braking, and through he goes on both of them.
Yeah, it was quite nice actually.
And he's going to go off the road. Oh dear.
Yeah, I think he did the right thing to bail out there
from Chris Shepherd, but yes, that was again rather close.
Yeah, I think he made the right choice to bail out at that one. It looked like he probably would have got a tap as we see what's happened to Dylan Platt here.
He's
Loses the rear, just going wide. Yeah, wow. Strange crash.
the first one was a good save. He actually, it looked as if he'd saved it partway through the corner, and he was completely under control again before losing it. And off goes the rear wing. Luckily, he's right by the pit lane, but his crew won't have been ready for him. Here's the move from Shepherd up the inside of not one but two cars, and whether he intended to go for the second move on Williams or not, I'm not entirely sure. Sometimes you find yourself sailing through and you're like, oh no, I've got to go for it now. And luckily Williams saw him. This other one is a little bit more contentious though, because look at this. Williams finds a gap, but is it a gap? That's not entirely clear cut there. It kind of looked as if he was left a car width, but it was only a car width and not a cigarette paper more. And in the end, he ended up running onto the grass and very nearly taking off Chris Shepherd. Now, Shepherd clearly feels that he is not at anything that may have happened, because he managed to maintain the position, and they still run in that order. Now, here is Thomas Harvey on Matthew Williams. He goes through. That's through the Curva Grande now. Williams takes another look. That's where he ran off the road last time around. Well, very good control from Matthew Williams, because not only did he stay on the road after running through the grass, but he actually made the corner as well. Most other people would have cut straight on. Now, this is the second place car of Jake Dennehan, and he missed the chicane. So the second place car of Jake Dennehan, obviously under pressure, seeing how fast Jan Grankvist is, and that has allowed Jan to break out of DRS range. So Jan Grankvist, who has not won a GPVWC Super League race yet, leads this race now by over a second from the championship leader. Made an uncharacteristic mistake this lap at turn 1.
I feel like it's the first mistake we've seen him make all season. Very uncharacteristic, but I just can't believe this pace from Jan. He's now got over a second and a half. So now Jake's out of that DRS range. It's going to be, as long as he keeps hold of his tyres and his pusher pass, that's amazing, absolutely amazing. But the problem is, it looks good, but Tom Stevens' strategy is looking preferable at the moment. He's not that far off the back.
And we haven't hyped up Tom Stevens quite enough just yet, because running 5th place in the first 10 laps on the medium tyres is quite something to behold, and that was a little kick up of dust there from Jake Dennehan. He is making a couple of minuscule mistakes in this race, and I think he's about to be mugged for P2. Tyan has the run, and Tyan's going to get him in the second DRS zone. There he goes, down towards Curva Ascari. He wiggles in the braking zone, but he makes the move stick, so Dennehan down to 3rd. I've been racking my brains, and I think the only mistake we've seen from Dennehan so far this season is when he sped in the pits in Azerbaijan, and that's what cost him the victory on that day. But other than that, he's been pretty much flawless until these last few laps. He made the mistake that cost him the DRS from Jan Grankvist, and he's now made another mistake, kicking up the gravel, allowing Jarl Tyan through and into 2nd position. Now, Jarl knows that a penalty is likely coming his way for the collision with Matthias moved earlier on. So his responsibility at this point is to get as far up the field as he can and as far ahead of as many people as he can, because it's most likely to be a time penalty, and if he can negate that time penalty by simply being too fast, then it won't matter by the end of this. By the end of this race. That is assuming he does get a penalty. There may be mitigating circumstances that we're not privy to, and the stewards will surely have an independent look at that at the very end. Now, here is Thomas Harvey once again on Matthew Williams. This is a fight that's been going on for a few laps for P17 and 18. We saw Chris Shepherd muscling his way past a few laps ago in quite robust circumstances. But this time through, it looks as if Williams has managed to stave off Thomas Harvey again.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the time in towers ago.
And there's been a change. I think Maguire just lost 6th place to Tomasz Wok, and there's Machedi. Okay, so some fighting going on there. But yes, it looks as if Tomasz Wok has got 6th place from Adam Maguire, and it was at the same time that we saw the yellow, despite the fact the car still seems to be okay. So Schuch's there, fighting with Jeffrey Fournier for 10th position, and Mark Schluter is right on their tail. Schluter, a driver who has had a real string of performance recently. Here comes Stepkowski, Looks as if your guys are swapping there, right? And the THR swap as well. So Tom Stevens goes through into 4th position. And that's an interesting one because you'd have thought that he'd be slower at this race with the medium tyres. But clearly Luke feels that Tom's race is more important at this point in time. So through goes Tom Stevens. Now there is Ruben Machete still fighting with Jeffrey Fournier. They've got Zolt Shooks up their rear. And now into the turn 4 and 5 chicane they go, as we're about to see a replay of what happened with Fabian Ballet, presumably bringing out the yellow flags. Now remember, this is Fabian's first GPWC Super League race, and that is a rookie error, getting on the power too early and hitting the wall on the inside, I'm afraid to say.
We've all been there. These cars are really high powered and hard to hold on to, especially when you get on that rumble strip, but I think we've seen the move here from Vark.
We are, and it was a very similar mistake from Maguire there to what we saw Denahan make a lap ago when Tyan got through. Just dipping a wheel over that white line, and there's no grip out there compared to what you get on the track. And Machete, a great move there, inside, outside, inside, to get P9 away from Fournier. And look, Tyan's going to take the lead. Tyan is right on the back of Jan Grankvist. Denahan's in the pits, but we're about to see a change for the lead. And Jarl Tyan, who hasn't driven a GPWC Super League race in 3 years, is going to get his time at the front of the field. Brilliant stuff. Here's Maguire and Machete, the 2 Nocturne cars. Machete now decides to go ahead. Denahan's still in the pits. He will go onto medium tyres by the look of it. I think that's mediums. We are a little way out. And he heads out of the pit lane now. It might be hards. By the look of it, it could be hard tyres. And it is hard tyres with the white rims, the white walls, sorry. Now Grankvist is already dropping quite significantly back from Jarl Tyan, so that is showing me that potentially he has used up his tyres, because he was a second ahead and now immediately he's a second behind. You saw him twitch out on the exit of Lesmo 2. He's even losing time to Tom Stevens. I think that we may have seen a driver using up too much too early in the form of Jan Grankvist there. We knew he was fast. Could he have been a bit too fast there as Jarl Tyan takes the lead?
It did look like he had such a big advantage that you got a question, did he burn his tyres, did he use up all his push to pass? I'm not so sure. It's quite hard to tell watching from the sidelines, but again, it might just be now that he's not using anything at all, as we see him dive into the pits, instantly responding to Denahan going the lap before. And I think this, do we think they can take these hard tyres to the end?
Well, considering how fast the soft tyres seem to go off, no way Jose, but we will see. Jan comes out of the pits right in front of Jeffrey Fournier. Looks as if Adam Maguire is in the pits as well. Now, does Denahan go through? This is the driver we have to look out for. There's a big gaggle of cars into turn 1. None of them are Jake Denahan. Oh goodness, we've got 4 in a row there, 2 by 2. Now, where is Jake Denahan? He is P18, so just behind Jan Grankvist. Grankvist just about manages to cover him off, and that is a very important situation in this race. So Jarl Tyan now leads by 3 seconds from Tom Stevens. Stevens will presumably stay out much later and take the lead of the race in due time. Tyan might well decide to pit this time around, seeing as pitting earlier rather than later is important. Tyan actually kicks up some gravel there. That's going to cost him maybe 0.5 of a second by the end of the straight. And as he goes through the curva parabolica, we're about to find out whether it's time for him to make a pit stop as well. 14 laps done in this race. We're already in the first pit window. Tyre wear certainly seems higher than anticipated, possibly due to the heat. And in he comes. So Tyan into the pits, and Tom Stevens will lead this race from 8th on the grid.
Yeah, good to see, but I don't want to jinx anything, but it looks like Jake's running out of options already.
Yeah, and that's Machete. And Machete has got through Tomasz Vok. So just as the RSR cars go side by side again, Tyus Moose comes in. Looks as if Ruben Machete has made up a place there as well. Here comes Jarl Tyan, and Tyan is ahead of Grangfist by about 1.5 seconds. So that's about what he had before they came into the pits. And he has maintained his advantage, showing that he kept his tyres right to the end of that stint. That is important to note. Shepherd now side by side with Carlos Martin. Two drivers of note today, with Shepherd starting from the back and Carlos starting for the very first time. Shepherd makes a great undercut manoeuvre, and that is how you execute the switchback in a corner where the switchback isn't normally executed. A bit of a weave from Martin. I wonder if he just wasn't really feeling it, or whether he was trying to show himself to the mirrors of Shepherd's car, maybe distract him. He's going to go to the outside. And it's a brilliant comeback move as well. This is great racing between the two of them. And in his very first race, Martin has gone around the outside of Chris Shepherd into the Ascari chicane. Very first race in Super League, of course. He has raced with us in other categories in the past. Into the Alboreto, and Thomas Vock is in the pits. No real surprise there. It's about that point in the race, and he seemed to be dropping back as well. So Stevens leads. Machete gets second now. Machete has got second past Daniel Stepkowski. So dispatches 2 RSR cars in the space of as many laps. And Shepherd will now go back through on Carlos Martin, but he locks up and he's going to miss the chicane. And he's going to have to give that up, surely, because he definitely would not have made that corner. And he does give it up, so Martin goes back through into 8th position, and Shepherd will have to do it all over again. He might try to do it immediately into the chicane because he's right on the tail of him. He's given back the place without giving back too much. That's what we like to see. Tyen's caught in traffic now. This is important. Through he goes on Harvey. He's got Matthew Williams ahead of him now. And this is a crucial stage in the race where it becomes less about who's faster and more about who can carve through the traffic. And now here is the first move from Chris Shepherd.
It's tight through that chicane there, doesn't it? I mean, Chris doing a good job of hanging on to them softs as well. It was this phase in the race. Oh, just gives a bit of a tap on the back of Carlos Martin there. Not too good. It was like a touring car push to pass move, that was.
Yeah, it's like a bump and run.
Yeah, exactly. And we're on board with Ruben Machete here. Let's see what he does down into turn 1. Is this on Stepkowski, I think?
It is, and easy peasy, I'm afraid to say. But there he goes.
Yeah, with the DRS. Again, though, on the medium tyre compared to Daniel starting on the soft, and he's now boxed as well, which makes sense.
Yeah, Shepherd in, Williams in,
race,
so they're both in.
Just want to point that out. It's all having a great race so far. Just want to give him a bit of credit there.
And that was Grangfist on Harvey, so he's back with Tyen again, albeit separated by about 1.5 seconds. Shukes out of the pits, and he is just behind. He's now separated by Stepkowski, so Stepkowski comes out ahead. Both of those guys having a decent race so far, and it's Maguire who's with them. There's Jake Denahan, and over the curb goes Giuseppe Lino. As Tyen goes through, we're about to see a replay. And it looks as if this is exactly what we just saw with Giuseppe Lino, but from a different angle. He's looking back at Tyen, who goes for the move. Very nearly contact, and that was a fair move because Tyen made the corner and Lino didn't. And he wasn't forced off the road or anything like that, but off the road he went nonetheless. So Tyen gets through into 7th position in this race so far. Lalu has followed him through.
It was actually Lalu that was ahead of him. I was about to say look who's ahead of him, and then we come out a replay and he's in front of him then. So my point is now irrelevant. But yeah, Lalu was probably trying his best to keep him behind, but couldn't quite on this occasion, and that's allowed Jarl to just stretch that lead just a little bit more.
No drivers still on soft tyres at this point in time. It's all mediums and hards to the end as Grangfist demurts Giuseppe Lino, who is yet to stop. Through he goes. Top driver on hards now Jukka-Pekka Lalu, but he started on those hards. So the real interesting thing here is that Tyen has gone for a different compound of tyre to both Grangfist and Denahan, as he's now going to use those to overtake Carlos Martin, who we've seen is brave, but Tyen goes through. Now, that's an interesting strategy call, because it means that now it's not quite what I said, but between the different cars weaving through the traffic, and it's more up to how they fare at the end of this stint as well. So it's all been about the end of the stints in this race so far. Here's Denahan on Lino. That's a bit far back, but he's going to make it stick. Nicely done. And yeah, it means that at this point in time, Tyan should be faster, and he should build up a gap. He's already built up a gap of 2 cars, with Martin and Lally separating himself from Grangfist. Schluter now comes into the pits as well, but when they end up making their pit stop at the end of this this stint as well, it might well swing back in the direction of Grangfist and Denahan. We'll have to see.
See Grangfist, who's starting late, making a move on his teammate, should more than likely let him go.
Ooh.
No?
Come on, jump out of the way. There goes Grangfist.
Surprised by that, but anyway, Jan gets through now, and the gap about 2 seconds, so it looks like Jarl's had a bit of a better run through the pack, as we see Jake now going to try and make a move on Carlos Martin, does that very nicely. That chicane become a weirdly popular overtaking spot. Usually
Definitely.
not so common for overtakes through there, but quite a lot of people getting it done, and the RSR boys have been attached to the hip pretty much all this race, just plucking away together, and now just trying to get back onto the back of Thomas Harvey in 13th. You see Giuseppe Lino going to make a move on Carlos Martin? Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Don't see this in Formula 1, do you? Some of the moves into some of these chicanes.
And that's a move for position too, because neither of those guys have stopped. So through goes Lino. Martin racing very sensibly today, I should say, as Machete pits, and so does someone else who's pitted behind them. But anyway, Tyan has passed Rural, so that might have been what was confusing me. Tyan also gets the DRS from that as well, because he did it after the detection zone. Rural coming back at him though with the slipstream. Not making it easy for him at all. Oh, I think, did they touch, or did Rourke lose it on the curb? Whatever, Rourke goes sideways. That's going to cost him some time. Luckily, Tyan stays in the right direction. This is Lino and Maguire now. But yeah, strange one there. Now, I was going to say something, but I've completely forgotten it. Anyway, the reason this chicane here is such a hard place... We're about to see a replay. Let's focus on this first. This is Rourke. Now, does he touch the back of Tyan's car? Or does he get away with it? He's a little too far. He's got a wheel alongside him, and there is contact, but is it? I mean, it's about 50-50, isn't it? I mean, Tyan, he doesn't give him much space, but Rourke was a long way back and got the curb. Here comes Grangfist, and he's on the grass with the DRS wide open, and he didn't even lift. You can tell he didn't lift because the DRS stayed open, and he went right past Stefan Rourke. Goodness me. He was very, very eager to get past the slower car at that point in time. Denahan will have it much easier. Look at that, easy peasy. But yeah, surely. I mean, I'm amazed that Grangfist didn't completely lose it in that one. I'm gonna have a look back at his telemetry. There was a very slight lift, but I tell you what, he did not come off the throttle, fully off the throttle at any point in that movement there. Even when he was sideways on the grass, DRS wide open, he was still full throttle. There's Fournier now passing Giuseppe Lino. But Ryan, my goodness, would you take a risk like that?
I'd like to say no, but I probably would. You've got to be committed. In that scenario, you can see your closest rival getting further and further away, and you've got to take every risk. You've got nothing to lose. And he wants that first win, as we see a replay of Fidok just getting a bit loose on that exit curb and takes his front wing for good measure. That's unfortunate for David. The Stacks boys not having a good run of it today.
Yeah, terrible day for Stacks. They're 22nd and 23rd and a minute behind the leaders, so I'm afraid to say, even with 20 laps to go in this race, points are looking very unachievable for the Stacks driver here. Only one driver out the race would be Dylan Platt. We didn't quite see how that happened, but he was having a little bit of a dud day as well, running quite far back. And Fidok's mistake, as Steve comes into the pits now. Fidok's mistake was what I described earlier as a rookie error when Ian Ballet did it. And David is very much not a rookie, so he will be beating himself up. So Stevens pits, Robin Pansar leads the race, just as he did at Belgium. Here's Luke Maguire on the back of Lally. That should be relatively straightforward. Through he goes. No disrespect to Lally, they're just on different strategies. And Pansar will lead the race by 4.5 seconds over Jarl Tyan, who will be gaining. and Panzer will pit later on, having started the race on medium tyres, doing quite a long stint on those mediums.
What just happened to Tom Stevens? Did we catch that anywhere? Because he just dropped about 3 or 4 places without.
He pitted.
Like he was in the pits.
Yeah, he was in the pits.
No, it didn't say pit on the board. It must have been just.
I'm afraid it did. I'm just looking back at it now, and it said pit.
Really?
But
yeah, he must have been exiting the pit and got done into turn 1 by quite a few cars, which is really unfortunate. If he was just 1 second in the opposite direction, he'd be ahead of how many 1, 2, 3, 4 cars there that he've now got to try and get through.
That's very true.
Tricky position.
That's very true, but I mean, he was on those medians for a long time. There's a genuine chance that he would have lost more time by staying out anyway, so you just got to see how it falls. Panzer leads from Tyen. Panzer now pits, so Jarl Tyen will once again take over the lead of the race. And this is the important part because he has clean air, so now it's all about how far he can get ahead. And here is Geoffrey Fournier on the back of Lalu. He goes through now. Grankvist is second, Denahan third, then Maguire, Fournier, Lalu, Lino, Bock, Stepkowski and Maguire, although Stevens is about to break into 11th place. There he goes on Zot Shooks. Shooks still there, but gives him the corner. And I still think that Stevens is a real contender in this race. Whether it's for the win or not is yet to be seen, but for the podium, absolutely for sure. There's his pit stop. Did anything interesting happen in there, or was it a straightforward pit stop? He's up on the jack, so he hasn't overshotted her. And out of the pits he goes. He's on hard tyres now, I think. Right. Is that another set of mediums, maybe? Maybe it hasn't quite updated yet, but back onto the road he goes. And this is where he got mugged by a whole bunch of cars heading down into turn 1. He would be thinking, oh no, what if I just left the brakes slightly later coming to the pits? What if I had an ever so slightly quicker in-lap? He'd have passed a couple of those cars, but you always think that, and realistically he's done a good job to hold on to those tyres for so long anyway. Adam Maguire will be the next car for him to pass. He won't be so simple, even though Stevens and Maguire have a healthy respect between each other, I'm sure. Here they come down the straight with the DRS open. There's a bit of a DRS train forming here. This is what I was talking about earlier, where one car up in front has enough pace to hold off a whole bunch of cars behind, and they hold position as it stands.
It's going to be fascinating to watch. I'm loving it already. See, Stevens going to be on the preferred tyre right now, the newest tyre around him. You see he makes a move, gets it done before the corner, which is good. Go yellow in sector 3.
Oh!
Push car, a double DNF for Stack.
Stacks are having terrible luck, so Fidot retired to the pits after his incident, and Philip Pushkate is about to have a heavy crash, I think. We saw there was a tyre flying or something. He's going to loop it, whoa, and wallop.
Wow.
Oh, that is a huge impact, and there is absolutely no coming back from that. Now here we're going to see it again, and I have to say, if that was reality, that would have been very unpleasant indeed. And Philip Pushkate is well and truly out of this race now, having launched it over the curb and into the barriers. Here's Maguire now through on the inside of Daniel Stepkowski, and Stevens has got both of them, so Stevens is up to P9 now. So here he is on Tomasz Vok, and they're both going to go past Giuseppe Lino, who got a very poor run, and that's a gap, look at that! Threading the needle, he found the gap exactly where he needed to, and Tom Stevens goes through into 7th place. That was a great double overtake there.
Yeah, well, also had DRS, but it looked like he opened, don't know, to me it looked like he opened it a little bit late down that straight. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah, just perfect gap through the middle there, just opened up for Tom and capitalised, and that's exactly what he needed to happen. So he's going to make a good push now. Team Maguire going straight over the chicane there, rejoins, just fends off Stepkowski there. He's getting all sorts of sideways. Is Adam struggling for that rear grip? But he's held onto it for now, and Stepkowski being backed up into the people behind. Let's see the replay.
So this is Adam Maguire. Oh,
Runs deep. That's it.
I think he could have made that corner. But anyway, obviously decided not to scrub the tyres too much more. Aviation Chad says the move was like Hakkinen, but this time through the middle. And indeed, that did bring back very much Belgian Grand Prix 2000 vibes. But anyway, here is Geoffrey Fournier on the back of Luke Maguire. More slipstreaming going on, and Maguire doesn't have the DRS to defend himself with. So up the inside, and that should be relatively straightforward, providing Maguire can't stick with him into the braking zone for turn 2. Lino, and they're almost 3 wide behind him. Everyone makes it through, little touch. That was Schluter and Schukes. And that is over P12 at this point in time.
Yeah, the others starting to shake up. Sort of spread out a little bit towards the front, but this pack here just looks electric. The battling looks great. It looks like great fun. I wish I was out on track with these guys. I mean, I'd be much further back, though. I wouldn't be able to be this fast and in this battle. But it's nice to see that it's not just a DRS train around here. People are able to make some really, really good moves. And Stevens now getting onto the back of Lalu. I want to say that Lalu will try and defend and hold off and help out his teammate, but the DRS is so strong that I think into turn 1 he's not going to have much option. As he even thinks about it in a parabolica, that would have been quite something. But it looks like he's just going to sit in behind, getting that slipstream, open up that rear wing, and he should absolutely fly past him. Well, probably even before turn 1.
Yeah, that'll be quite straightforward, as fast as we know the Super Venturi is. Good job to Lalu, by the way, to leave it out so late and jump up so many positions. Stepkowski, talking of jumping up positions, goes past Giuseppe Lino into P10. Needed to do that sooner rather than later. A lot of talk about the top 2 going on in the chat right now. Tom Parker saying Jarl is a very good driver, no shame in being second to him, and that's absolutely true. And Aviation Chad saying Denahan's still not getting DRS with the win. Jan's got the win, come on. I still think Jan is possibly, I don't quite know if he's the favourite point, because he's still going to have to pass Tyan on the track, but when they have the final pit stop and we see what tyres they go onto, it'll be like the revealing of a hand in poker or whatever. And Chris Shepherd apparently has just had an incident. You can see the flat spotted front left, and we saw the yellow flag. And he resumes in the race.
Still got wings.
Yeah, still got wings. Still, I mean, it looked... I only saw the flat spot on the front left, so it may have just been a lock-up and an off spin. But running 18th in the race at this point in time, after starting from the back. Luke Maguire still on the tail of Geoffrey Fournier, and Mateusz Piscian has noted that Epic Racing is absolutely cooking, 1st and 4th in this race. And I tell you what, that'll be why it's so hot here today, because they are turning up. Giuseppe Lino now about to get mobbed by some Holland Racing Team cars by the look of it. He stayed out excruciatingly long in this race, but when he started on the hard tyres. Kicking up the grass there is old Schukes. And to the inside he goes. Finally makes Giuseppe the meat in the sandwich. We're going to get a replay now of Chris Shepherd. So we're going to see exactly what happened to him. And it's exactly what happened to Fidok, except he keeps it out of the barriers. So unlike what happened with Fidok and what happened with Fabian Ballet earlier on, Chris Shepherd was able to keep it out of the wall. And only bruised tyres and pride are his damage.
I say catching, they're being quite close, haven't they? Luke and Jeff. But he's going to have the DRS this time around. He's a little bit of understeer through the parabolica. A little bit wide, but I guess, I mean, these two guys are hunting down Jake as well. Which I didn't expect to be seeing, but really quick, and Jake's looked a little bit lost this race. He's kind of just been a bit on his own, cruising around, but I'm sure he's really trying his best in his sim at home. You see this pack still going strong.
And it shows you just how strong Jake is that we're talking about him being lost at sea when he's net 3rd or 4th, right? But anyway, that's Jake for you.
Yeah.
There's
high expectations this year, that's for sure.
a little bit of tyre rubbing there between Shepard and Martin, but they make it through. Now, a lot of talk going on in the YouTube chat now about Stevens potentially doing a one-stop strategy. Stevens currently in 6th position. Tom Parker says that would be impressive. Yes, it would be. But Rep F1 points out that Tom Stevens' only chance to beat Jake today might just be with that one-stop strategy. Medium tyre starts did much. And to be honest, I can absolutely see that at that point there, when Jake seems unbeatable on pace, you've got to do something else. And Stevens seems to be executing it very, very well. So, race to do a one-stop, that Jake will have to make him road, especially at this point, because Jake is about 5 seconds from. Schluter now is catching Stepkovsky, who himself is going side by side with Lalu. And it looks as if Lalu's going to lose 2 places for the price of 1 there. Not quite, not quite. Oh, and a little touch front to rear. Just as we saw earlier, a touring car, NASCAR style bump and run. Not quite so much run on that one though.
In fact, there's no run on that one. A little bit. But neither party coming off too bad, so it's okay.
And there is Shepard side by side with Williams. I swear, he tends to be side by side with someone every time we look. But I guess that's why we go back to him. Carlos Martin waiting to pick up the pieces. It has been indeed. Little touch. Earlier on, of course, Thomas Harvey was involved. You don't go 3 wide there. You don't go 3 wide there, especially on the grass. What are you doing? I tell you what, though. Carlos Martin, if nothing else, he is brave today. You remember that outside move into Ascari? He just tried to put it 3 wide while half on the grass.
None of them 3 crashed there is baffling to me. But I'm glad none of them did. Good to see them all still in the race. As we see, is Luke going to make a move on Jeffrey this time? Looks to the inside.
And
gets it
through
done.
he goes.
Jeff being even losing this position, still really, really hard charger of 8 positions so far.
The chat now talking about Epic Racing's one and only GPVWC Super League victory, which was at the Australian Grand Prix in 2018. People reminiscing about what a good race it was. To be honest, it must have been a good race later, but yes, that was Jeffrey Fournier who won on that occasion. His only GPVWC Super League victory, if I remember correctly, and it set us up for quite a season of racing as well. But yeah, if indeed one of the Edge drivers, or Epic Racing drivers, sorry, were to win today, that would in fact be the first time since their very first outing in GPVWC Super League with Jeffrey Fournier. And how poetic would it be that Fournier would still be with that team 5 years later. Machete there has just got past Jakub Lalu, that is for P11. And here is the driver that Epic's hopes rest on, Yartayan, leading the race by 4.9 seconds for Jan Fist, breaking into the first chicane. And he knows he's got quite a race ahead of him, 3rd stint. Presumably, Fist better.
See now what the gap is between Jarl and back to Stevens. So it looks about. Wait, it's not that big. It looks like Stevens is one of, if not the best position of Jarl going into the box. But you know, we said that he was always going to have the best strategic positioning, but it's looking very, very strong at this, just past the middle point of the race.
You're absolutely right. Stevens will lead this race again, I'm sure of it. And that means that they will have to pass him for the lead. Then again, we have seen that strategy backfire a few times. In the Nürburgring, I believe 2 drivers stayed out quite late, led the race, and then their tyres kind of hit the cliff. David Feidock was one of them. day who led the race, he still thought that it was worth the while, because he would have been further back if he hadn't tried it. But of course, there's no real way to prove that, because he didn't try it. So we don't really know, and that's why we always talk about gambling strategy. There's Maguire just cutting across the chicane, and I tell you what, he ignored the race instructor or the race director's instructions there, because when you go straight on through a chicane like that, you are supposed to go around the polystyrene. Oh, and he's gone straight. Oh, that's Machete that time. But you're supposed to go around the polystyrene marker board, which he absolutely did not do. And if someone's noticed that, then I'm sure he will be brought before the stewards. But anyway, that is a problem for later for Adam Maguire. What do you make of that, Ryan? Oh, and a big crash for Chris Shepherd.
Wow.
And you see his tyre going past there, lagging its way through. But we've had a big accident, and that's just like what Philip Puishke's car ended up looking like. Now, how's he hit the inside wall there? Big twitch, wallop into the outside wall. That reminded me of Derek Warwick in 1990. If any of you guys have seen that crash, you'll know what I'm talking about. But there he is, straight backwards into both barriers. Massive twitch, absolutely huge. And I'm afraid there is absolutely no coming back from that. We've seen some humongous accidents so far. And obviously the car is still difficult to control even in this modern day and age. Chris Shepherd, who started from the back, who's making his way through the field, has had it all come to naught, Ryan. And that's Denahan in the pits with Jeffrey Fournier.
Yeah, sorry, I'm good in a few ways, mainly because I like Chris, but that little battle that they had going on, them three guys, I'm a bit gutted that that's had to come to a stop. But yeah, Jake and Jeff hitting the pits, kind of expected, but a little bit earlier than I thought it was going to be.
Possibly, but we knew it was going to be a two-stop, and they can run to the end from here. There's Panzer now, with Machete. Jake Denahan exits the pits, still ahead of Fournier. About the same distance between the two of them as expected. And now the interest shifts to Tyan Grankvist and Luke Maguire, who will be pitting in due time. Stevens will presumably take the lead, and he will be trying to go to the end of the race from there. Mark Schluter, P8. Daniel Stepkowski, P7. DRS activated. There are 2 DRS zones on this circuit. There have definitely been talks about putting in a third before the Curva Parabolica, but I think that would be too much on a track that's already very slipstreamy. Out of the Ascari chicane once again. That's a tricky corner because it tries to unsettle the car, and Tyan is in. So from the lead of the race, Jarl Tyan pits. Grankvist goes through, so Jan Grankvist once again leads this Grand Prix. Luke Maguire will be second. The gap for the lead is 4 seconds, 3.8. And here comes a massive train of cars with Wok, Maguire, Stepkowski and Schluter. Out of the pits in the background comes Tyan. Looks as if Adam Maguire is going to lead that pack through. And Tyan is easily ahead of Denahan as we expected. It's more Grankvist that he has to worry about. Tyres is Tyan on. Are those mediums again? I think he's left it long enough to go medium. Now that's a very important note in this race, because it means he's probably going to have the same tyres as the other cars that come up pits around him. And I think that has given him the advantage in this race now. We were expecting that he'd have to pit slightly earlier than that, and that he might have to go onto hard tyres to the end. But I think now it's all down to the other drivers to catch him, and to catch him on the road as well. There will be no undercut or overcut or anything like that to help them. Jarl Tyan does very much lead this race from the net order.
Yeah, he got about 10 seconds, I think it is, to gain on Stevens. In, what's that, going to be 17? Yeah, 17 laps to go, so Grankvist in, got to react to Jarl, which is understandable. I'd be interested to see some of the guys who have stayed out might even consider a soft as their second pit stop. See, no, Schluter thinks better of it. It gets very close. to the back of Daniel Stokowski there. See Jeffrey Fournier setting a fastest lap of the race.
Oh yeah.
Jan spots out into P11, so splits the Epic Racing cars.
He's 6 seconds behind Tyne. He's got to find that on the road in 17 laps. I'm not sure he can do it.
Neither am I, but that race win potentially still getting away from Jan. But I'm sure it'll come eventually. Maybe even today, you never know.
Well, it all depends on Jarl Tyne, doesn't it? And I hate to bring this up because, of course, we don't know and we have to leave it in the hands of the stewards. But if I was Jarl, I'd be pushing and pushing just in case of a post-race penalty. We've seen a driver being penalised after the race earlier this season, with Jake Dinahan losing his win in, I think it was Azerbaijan. And Jarl Tyne did quite clearly run into the back of another driver, run into the back of Matthias Moos towards the start of this race. So that's got to be on his mind at this point in time. Luke Maguire is in the pits now, so Tom Stevens will lead the race. THR is swapping at the front. Tyne is caught up behind Zolt Schukes. And now this is the race that I was talking about. Drivers fighting to go through quickly as they can. Maguire and Schukes in the pits, and there's a move. Tyne going to the outside line of Shetty, and through he goes, and he makes the corner, more importantly. So Tyne is flying, and he's still 6 seconds ahead of Jan Granqvist.
That was a good move, and one that he needed to make as well, because he would have just been sat behind Machete, losing time there, but kept it on the brake and just about got it stopped in that first corner. Matthias Moos having a, at least in the points paying positions, which is all that you could ask for from what's been a pretty rubbish Grand Prix for him. Not obviously due to his own actions, but another not so good one. But see Schluter now trying to get past Robin Panzer on the outside, and with Gary gets it done. Panzer's been quiet in this one, winning last time out, but still doing a decent job. The two. Why has the team Adonis cars just been looking away? So yeah, Schluter holds on to it there.
I think Panzer is going to lose the momentum through there. That was actually Panzer attempting to pass Schluter down into the Ascari. And Schluter's had quite a recovery drive as well after poor qualifying. Here comes Jarl Tyne. He's got to make this move. Robin Panzer and Mark Schluter are fighting just ahead of him. This could cost him a lot of time depending on how cooperative they're going to be. I always think the halo of that car looks a bit like cheese with the little dots on it, but I get that it's supposed to be like rivets or something. But anyway, up to the chicane we go. I was mentioning earlier how this chicane's a difficult one to overtake in. A difficult chicane to navigate. There are always plenty of shadows going down. Pick your braking point. And even then the car gets very turn in curbs. Not surprised we're seeing drivers out on the exit of that corner, because it is an easy mistake to make. Missing the corner is quite easy too. Tyne is now going through, so he'll get him on the straight, good move. But now he's stuck in and amongst this battling quad with Schluter, Stepkowski and Vok just ahead of him. Here he goes, Mark Schluter goes to the left, space on the right. And he's right over by the edge of the circuit, through he goes. Another very brave move. He clearly knew that he was going to have a gap there. Now he's got the RSR cars to pass on the exit. This is beautiful driving from Jarl Tyne. It's like he's indicating mirror signal maneuver on a motorway. Easy peasy, in the right lane. Up into second place, and there's a dive from Schluter. And now that's going to allow Panzer to go through as Schluter gets dumped into the gravel. I think there was a little bit of karma there, because he did come from a bit too far back. Schluter gets both places. Sorry, Panzer gets both places. Good move there. Opportunistic driving. But Jarl Tyne, what a masterclass we saw there. Those four cars look like they cost him absolutely no time at all. And here's a replay from Panzer. You see the two cars ahead of him touch. And Panzer's like, thank you very much. Through I go. Spa all over it.
Yeah, the superior traction, and coming out of such a slow corner like that, going from almost zero, you gotta get on the throttle as smoothly and as quickly as you can, and to capitalise on the slow exit from the other two, but Maguire now just sat in behind Rual, who goes, whoa, way wide on the exit there. That's going to be an easy move for Adam, isn't it?
Yeah. I noticed he dipped his wheels off the road on the entry, and that certainly didn't help his turn in. So through goes Adam Maguire into 12th position now, and we're going to see a replay, possibly, of what we just saw. Yeah, there we go. Oh my goodness! And Maguire did well there to lift off the throttle. You can see that on his telemetry, and avoid running straight into the back of the wayward Rual. And here's Grankvist now. He's got to power through the traffic just as fast as Tyan did. And his first target will be Ruben Machete. He's now got all those cars, third down to 7, so 5 cars between himself and Jarl Tyan, and 13 laps to go in this race. This is looking increasingly good for Tyan and Edge. And really what's given him this big advantage point was his second stint, the way that he was able to go on. He was able to drive them matter. Down the back straight we go once again. Robin Panzer approaching Tomasz Vok, third in the order. These two drivers probably still owe us another stop, but at this point you never can tell. Now, I've been almost implying that Jarl Tyan has won this, but you have to remember, Tom Stevens is 6 seconds up the road, and we're not expecting him to stop. So Jarl Tyan is not yet the race leader. He does have time to catch Tom Stevens, especially at the rate he's going, but he's got to pass him. We know that Jarl can. You can see he was a second faster on that last lap, so that would make it rather easy. Panzer now through on Wok, so Panzer up to 3rd place. It's quite interesting, the battle for 3rd as well, because those guys are absolutely contended. But you've also got to consider Grankvist, Fournier and Denahan coming through as well. Possibly Machete. It's very difficult to work out who's done what stop and when at this point, but there you go. 41 laps completed. Stevens leads by 5 seconds over Jarl Tyan. That's a move that's going to have to take place on the circuit. Robin Panzer is P3, Tomasz Vok and Daniel Stepkowski. Then Mark Schluter, Jan Grankvist, I think is possibly going to be on the podium at the end of this, but it does depend on tyres and overtakes. Then Ruben Machete, P8, Jeffrey Fournier, P9, Jake Denahan, P10, not where he would like to be at this point in time. He will make up some position, but at this point, I'm starting to wonder whether he'll be on the podium. Further back, still plenty of points going the way of every driver down to 15th position. 20 drivers still on the lead lap of this race, and 21 drivers still running. The retirements, Shepard, Krishke, Fidok and Platt, most guttingly for the entire Stax team. And here is Jeffrey Fournier side by side with Ruben Machete, fending him off, overtaking him down into turn 1 there, and going up into P8 as we head towards the final 10 laps of the race, Ryan.
Yeah, we're looking at Alpecine's Ultras putting in the fast lap there. And we see him actually making a move as well on, is that Matthias Woods? Yes, it is, and he gets it done.
Yeah.
Nice exit, good. The gap at the top is coming down, interestingly, as well. Just dipped under 4 seconds, though. Could be a move on in the next 2 to 3 laps, I'm not sure, but I think your Panzer, Vok and Stepkowski and Schluter are probably going to stay out. It's probably too late for these guys to be making a pit stop, really.
It's getting to that stage, isn't it? Well, possibly egged on by what Stevens is doing, and possibly the plan from the beginning. Now, I noticed that several of these drivers left their first pit stop really, really late. So there's a definite chance that some of these drivers, at least, will be going to the end. We've got 10 laps to go, so at this point, why not give it a go? I still think Grankvist might well be on for a podium here, but he might also have to pass some people on the road. Here's Stepkowski, P5. We're actually seeing faster sectors being set up and down the grid right now. It's a very, very green track, or very fast track, sorry. Green track would be slick. But yeah, you've got Jeffrey Fournier, fastest first sector of anyone. Jake Dennehan, personal best, sectors 2 and 3. Luke Maguire is the fastest in the third sector right now. There's a good deal of slipstreaming and DRS going on, but there's also a good deal of extremely fast motor racing going on. Drivers setting their personal bests up and down the grid. Here's Jeffrey Fournier. He's one of the drivers who is absolutely flying at this point, well and truly inside the 123. And if you're wondering about the leaders, Jarl Tyen seems to be gaining about 7 tenths to a full second on Tom Stevens every single lap. He's down to 3 seconds behind him now with 10 laps to go. This is going to be a tense finish to this race. The time does seem to fluctuate quite a lot if you watch it on your screen, but that's mainly straights here. Every time they get onto a straight, the gap goes, it increases and then decreases as they brake for the braking zone. So it's not hugely representative, but it's close enough, especially when you watch as they get set. Tyen's last lap time almost a full second than Tom Stevens. He is flying. Jake Dennehan on the back of... Did Luke Maguire just overtake Jake Dennehan? He did. So Jake Dennehan is no longer in the top 10 in this race. Driver who is yet to finish off the podium. I think he's very much not going to score a podium today. That's quite a shock considering he started on pole for this one, Ryan. What's gone wrong with Jake?
I really don't know. I can't put a finger on it. He just didn't look like he was at the races in the first stint.
Yeah.
Which I thought might have been because of, you know, people pushing the tyre too hard or using all the push to pass. But at no point in the race has he, like, seemed to get it back into a rhythm. And maybe this is the side of Jake we don't see a lot, which is where he's in the more scrappy positions further down, and maybe he just maybe he's lost his head a little bit and not being able to recover. He's so used to being in that top 3 as we see. Granquist and Schluter getting close into the parabolic.
They did touch for sure. They absolutely touched. Granquist still on the outside, still has the drag and goes through. It'll be interesting to see who's ahead by the time they get to the corner though, but I think it's going to be Granquist. But yeah, they definitely touched there. And Schluter comes back at him now on the inside and gives him the place. So Granquist goes through to P6. There's Dennehan. And he does get back past Ruben Machete this time around, so back into the top 10. But yeah, you're absolutely right. He had a great start, but after that, he just looked like a midfielder, dropping back. Tyen's last lap, yet again, very nearly a second faster than Tom Stevens. There's Jeffrey Fournier getting involved in what will be an excellent day for Epic. And that was a big twitch from Schluter. Maintains the position. We have just 8 laps to go in this race now. And Tyen is very nearly within DRS range of Tom Stevens. It won't be long now. And I don't think Stevens will have anything that he can give for Jarl Tyen. Fournier goes up to 7th. What a day for Epic. They could well get both cars into the top 5 by the end of this one. Jan Granqvist is going to have another look at Daniel Stepkowski this time. Down towards the Parabolica Alboreto, it'll all be about the exit here and the slipstream. We know that Granqvist is extremely fast in a straight line. We saw that at the start of the race. Remember, Granqvist too was leading. He'll be wondering where it all went wrong. And I think it's strategy. I think one stop was the way to go today. Granqvist goes through into P5 here, 5th position. To be honest, it almost seems like an unachievable task for someone, because they had to start on the soft tyres, and I think Tom Stevens has really hit the nail on the head in this race by sitting on the medium. Even though it cost him grid position, he could well have been on pole position if he'd started on the softs, but I doubt he'd be leading the race now. He'd be a little further down. Of course, we don't know for sure, but here we go. Jarl Tyen is within DRS range. This is for the lead of the race, Ryan. He's made it, but can he go through? I think he will.
Well, it's not just going through, he's got to build a gap as well. We talked about earlier with that potential incident looming over the top of his head that he needs to not only get past but build a gap with a possible time penalty. We'll have to see, but he's done a good job, and it's interesting. He's proven that strategy can work, but just nobody else has been able to replicate it.
He's been fast enough, and he's been good enough on the tyres, for sure.
Oh yeah, and Stevens not surprised me. I knew that strategy was going to be good, but it was brave, and it's worked, as we see Fournier now going around.
And also Grankvist on walk. Grankvist around the outside. Oh, four-wheel drifting into turn 1. Great move from Jan Grankvist. Through he goes into P4. He is possibly still a podium contender. Here comes Jarl Tyne. He took a look. Showed himself to the mirrors of Tom Stevens' car for the very first time in this race. And in 6 laps, I don't think there's anything that Stevens can do. Thomas Rock here running P5 now. Fournier on the charge behind him. He's up to P6. Little bit of grass being kicked up in the background. Still drivers breaking into the 123s for the very first time. This has been a very fast race. Not the fastest we've ever seen in GPVWC. And we're a few seconds off the lap record, but that is okay. Jarl Tyne picks up the gravel. Pulls his way to the back of Tom Stevens' car. He's going to wait as they go through Alboreto. I do feel that he could have made the move there, but he knew that Stevens would get the DRS if he did. Out to the final corner. Daka2 in the chat says epic for the win with an exclamation mark and many exclamation marks. And indeed, Jarl Tyne is going to go through in a straight line, and he leads into turn 1. Jarl Tyne, who led earlier in the race, will lead again as Grankvist takes 3rd. It's Tyne, Stevens, Grankvist, then Panzer and Fournier in the late stages. Still an extremely close race. Now, you were mentioning the penalty there, Ryan. I'm afraid, as far as GPWC is concerned, we've got to call the race as we see it. And whether we expect a penalty coming his way or not, Jarl Tyne, if he crosses the line first, we've got to acknowledge him as the winner of this race until the stewards say otherwise if they do. But it's looking very good for Jarl Tyne and the Epic Racing guys at this point in time. And I don't think Stevens is going to be too bitterly disappointed. I think he saw it coming from quite a long way off, and he's also going to be scoring quite a few points over his main rival, Jake Dennehan. In fact, if Stevens was to finish 2nd today, he would score 20 points. And if Dennehan is to finish 10th, score 6, that's 14 points. They would go into the next round dead even on points, which we actually saw earlier on in the championship as well. And yeah, it absolutely means that we have a fight on in the last 4 rounds of this championship. It's been a weird one. Every single time it looks as if Jake Dennehan has the advantage in the standings, and we think that he's going to start pulling away from it. Tom Stevens brings it back. He brought it back with those 2 wins in a row in Spain and Canada. He's maintained his... here comes Jake Dennehan, by the way. And that move up into P9 effectively maintains his championship lead for the being. But every time it looks as if it's over, Tom Stevens pulls something out of the bag, and he's been very consistent. Even though Dennehan has not finished off the podium at any point, Stevens has not finished out of the top 4, and he will continue his streak today, even though Dennehan won't. So, as far as consistency is concerned, Tom Stevens is doing everything that he needs to.
Yeah, and it's all about sacrifice, and sacrifice that grid position, and he's made it work. I mean, who would have thought your pole man would be in P9? That is just baffling to me. I'd be so interested to hear what's going on there from some of the edge guys, but I think we're getting potentially a bit of a leveling off now at the front. The gap's coming down slightly between Grankvist and Stevens, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough. Stevens would really be trying his best to hold on to that P2, because you know, it's not very often that you get quite a lot of places between yourself and your closest rival, and you need to get as many as you can. As you see Fournier going for P4.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Epic Racing Team must have a fantastic setup for today, as Stepkovski's now being passed by Luke Maguire, so Maguire splits the RSRs. We're on lap 50 out of 53 now. But yeah, Epic have 2 cars in the top 4. Fournier is within DRS range of Grandfist. Could it be a double epic podium on the day they score their first win in 5 years? Luke Maguire goes to the inside of Tomasz Wok. He goes through to P6, so both RSR cars demoted in the space of half a lap. Through the Les Maurice he goes now, and he might still have time to catch Panzer depending on how this race goes. Panzer still has DRS from Ford. Down the back straight once again. Open DRS on the RSR cars. 3 seconds is the gap for the lead now, so Tyne is still building out that lead. Grandfist still catching Steven. His lap times, so Grandfist's lap times appear to be about a second faster than race, but I think Stevens might just have the upper hand. Fournier though, surely he's going to put both epics on the podium. Wouldn't that be amazing?
I would love to see that. As a former Epic driver, I'd really like to see that. Lee deserves it after the year that he's had. That'd be pretty cool, and especially, you know, I love Jeff, really great guy, and that win in 2018 was magic. So I'd love to see him get back on the podium, especially after this year.
And it's also worth noting that Fournier and Epic's best result of the season so far has been P7. So this has absolutely elevated their craft, as Thomas Harvey apparently has just had a little off. Here's a replay. This will be in the Ascari chicane. Oh, it's what happened to Pushke earlier on. Much lighter. No contact whatsoever. It's because the car didn't snap back in the other direction. So Harvey's in 18th place. Remember, points go down to 15th here, so Matthias Moos is currently on salvage a point, being spun to the back earlier on. Been a bit anonymous after that, but at least he's going to get a point out of it. Through the chicane they go. These are the RSR cars. And, I think they're going to be allowed to race to the end. Point. I still think it's a day for both cars top 10 as it stands, even though Denahan is looking very feisty. 2 laps to go, including the one that we're on now. The gap between Grandfist and Stevens was 3.3 seconds, and Grandfist was 8/10 faster than Stevens, so it's not going to be enough. Not quite anyway, he's going to be close. Jeffrey Fournier, on the other hand, his lap times don't really matter because he is stuck right under the gearbox of Jan Grandfist for 3rd position. And that's what's really going to matter, the battle on track. Talking of battles, Denahan is going through on Stepkowski. Nicely done.
It's back, sorry.
One walk, sorry, yep, you're right.
Yeah, looks like them two had a little change around into turn 1, but I think Rack was hoping to put up a little bit more of a battle on Jake, but hasn't quite happened, so looks like Jake's probably going to get another position. It's very close to Stepkowski, and then points are getting, the gap is getting smaller and smaller between Stevens and Jake. He's finally seems like he's woken up, and yeah, he'll still come out. As it stands, he'll come out of this round still with the championship lead. Don't get me wrong, the gap will be narrowed, but he'll still be world championship leader, looks like.
Yeah, and this might help. Alongside Daniel Stepkowski, he goes right over to the white line, using every inch of space that was available, and through he goes into P7 on the very last lap of the race. Now Ryan, what a race this has been. It was unpredictable, and we had to wait until the last 10 laps for it to be decided. In the end, it's going to look a little more straightforward than that, with Tyne winning by 6 seconds at least, but he's had to do that from 4th on the grid, and he's had to do that with contact, with overtakes. It hasn't been straightforward whatsoever, and how you feel about this result is completely up to whose team you're affiliated with and what your opinions on various incidents were. But I have to admit, Tyne has been extremely fast today. This will be his first GPVWC race since 2020, his first GPVWC finish and points since 2019, and his first GPVWC victory since 2018. Jarl Tyen, an epic win for the first time in 5 years. Tom Stevens will be second. He's 4 seconds back at the end. Jan Grankvist will be third. He's only just behind him and fends off Jeffrey Fournier. Robin Panzer will be fifth, followed by Luke Maguire, Jake Denahan, Daniel Stepkowski, Tomasz Wok, and Mark Schluter, the top 10. And what a race and what a drive that has been for various drivers up and down the field. The other points go the way of Machete, Maguire, that is Adam Maguire, Shukes, Lalu, and Moose. Here is Matthias Moose, who was spun around near the start of the race. Interesting to see Ruhr missing out on points. Very unusual. Carlos Martin did well to finish his very first Super race. Again, beat his teammate Thomas Harvey, just as he did in qualifying. And Fabian Ballet also finished his first GPWC Super League race, albeit in the final qualified position. There are the live standings then. Jake Denahan is only 3 points ahead of Tom Stevens heading into the rest of the season. They themselves are over 100 points ahead of the rest of the field. Grankvist is there. He is still yet to win a race. Panzer moves up to 4th. He is flying at this point in the season. Lalu is up there, and then there's Wok, Maguire. Goodness me, they're still together. Stepkowski and Schluter. And of course, Jarl Tyen will jump up the grid despite only having driven 1 Grand Prix. So what a day of racing this. What do you make of that? Epic and Jarl's first race victory in 5 years.
Personally, I'm going to say that it was pretty epic.
I knew that was... I was trying so hard not to make that pun at any point today, but it had to be done.
No, anyway, sorry, very quickly, I think that was fantastic, not only for the Epic Racing team, but for the championship as well. I think it's refreshing to see us have a different winner, and if only the real world could follow suit and have a few different winners like we do. But yeah, that's a really, really great Grand Prix for me. I really enjoyed this one, and unfortunately I've got to disappear. I've got 4 minutes to go pick up my girlfriend, so I'm not going to be able to stay for the interviews. But thank you very much, Caitlin and Szymon, as always, and thank you to all the drivers for putting on a good show for me today.
Thank you very much, Ryan. You've been amazing, and I can't wait to commentate the rest of the season with you. So have a good time.
I won't be back for the next one, but I'll be back after Singapore.
Oh no!
Anyway,
Okay,
see you
thank you,
later.
Ryan.
Thank you.
So there you see the order once again. Jarl Tyen taking the victory in his one and so far only GPWC performance of the season. Tom Stevens second, followed by Grankvist, Fournier, Panzer, Luke Maguire, and Denahan, Stepkowski, Wok, and Schluter. And I think it is time for some interviews. We'll need to wait for the interview room to fill up a little bit. But anyway, we can speak to a driver from the team that fielded Tom Stevens to second place today. Chris Butcher. Hey Chris, how are you?
Hi Caitlin, I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. It's good to be back here at GPWC. Tom Stevens was good today. Got the strategy absolutely right by the look of it. Whose idea was that?
Toby's. I mean, to be fair, all the team put a lot of work into gathering loads of data for the strategy, and Toby's the one that puts it all together. So hats off to him for working that one out, and as well Tom, because it was crucial that he got as far as up the grid as he could on the medium tyre. So credit has to go to Tom for that as well.
Absolutely, he did amazingly to qualify P8, and of course second place in the race after that. Now, crucially, that brings his championship battle with Denahan down to just 3 points difference. How do you think he'll be feeling going into the race of the season?
It's a definite confidence boost. I mean, look, at the beginning of the season, we sort of said this would be a building year for us. It's the first year that we've competed in Super League. It's all a little bit new to us, and we don't have any other teams that we can lean on for support other than ourselves. So it's very much something that we've learned ourselves, and we did not expect to be in this position. We kind of thought, yeah, we got lucky at the start of the season when all the cars were equal and and that sort of thing, and we expected it to tail off a little bit, and that kind of felt like it was happening. Edge was starting to reel us in. But yeah, this is exactly what we needed. Both cars ahead of both edge cars. Luke was fantastic at all race as well. Just unfortunately, we put him on the wrong strategy. But if we'd have put him on the right strategy, then he'd have been right up there as well.
That's a very good point, but he still did a good job with P6. So what do you think went wrong with Luke's race? Was he on the? I have to admit, I completely forget what strategy he was even on.
Well, Luke did a two-stop, same as Grankvist and Denahan. And Luke, he finished ahead of Denahan, and started the race behind him. So you can't really ask for any better than that. He did exactly what we needed him to do. So I wouldn't say anything went wrong for Luke, really. He drove a perfect race, and arguably he was a little bit faster than Jake over the whole race distance. So it was just a case of we split the strategy on the cars. Unfortunately, it was the wrong thing to do for Luke's race, but we can't say he did anything wrong. He did a fantastic race.
Absolutely. The last thing I want to point out is I've just noticed that is Tom's 8th podium in a row. Now, for such a young driver, that shows absolutely brilliant consistency. He hasn't been outside of the top 4 in any race so far this year. Now, there's a lot of drivers, especially drivers who may have some bad luck or may not be quite so committed, who have a dull race every just rage quit partway through or something. But Tom, he just keeps plugging on and he gets away. So great respect to him.
Yeah, Tom's a huge asset to the team. He works really hard. He's hungry for it. We're really glad he's part of THR, like we are all the drivers and everybody we've got. Obviously, I've mentioned Toby worked really hard on the strategy. Tom Ely does a lot of work with Motec and setup work as well. So it really is a big team effort.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for speaking to us, Chris, and make sure to congratulate Tom for me.
I will. Thanks very much.
Very good. Now, I don't want to completely focus on the Nocturne THR squad because I know this interview section tends to be quite heavy with them, but I have to admit they're the only people in the interview room right now. So considering we've just heard from consider we've just been hearing about Luke Maguire, let's speak to Luke Maguire. Hello, Luke. How are you?
Hi, Caitlin. How's things?
It's going okay, thanks. Now, we just heard from your friend Chris that you feel you weren't quite on the right strategy today. Do you think you could have challenged if it had gone?
I don't think I would have challenged for the lead because Epic were epic, and I think Tom had really good pace in the one stop. We really knew before going in that Tom was going to go in the one, and we were all a bit hesitant, and I think we all should have went on the one stop. It was definitely the way to go, but if not the one stop, the two stop on double mediums probably would have been better. We were going to do 2 hard stints, and then we realized in the middle stint that Jarl was doing way quicker us in the mediums, and they weren't dropping off. So yeah, I can thank Toby for making that decision to go on to the mediums, and it got us ahead of got ahead of Jake. So yeah, it's good for Tom's championship.
Not Now, we saw that it was quite hectic out there, a lot of traffic, a lot of overtakes. How was that to navigate today?
Not too bad. I think everyone raced quite fair. It was one of the better ones for me.
Very good, short and simple. The Monza track can be a tricky one when it comes to racecraft and all of that. So it's great to see that everyone kept it quite clean today. And how does it feel to have fended off Jake Denahan? Surely finishing ahead of the championship lead is a feather.
Yeah, no, it feels good. I'm just it's happy for the team, happy for Tom, and it'll hopefully project us a little bit forward for the next race. So yeah, I just want to say thanks to all the THR guys and Tom Ely for making a last minute change to this setup, which really helped me. Nearly got pole, but not quite.
Fantastic. Well, last but not least, first of all, thank you very much for speaking to us, Luke.
No problem.
Have a good time. I'm now going to speak to, and we can speak to the Grand Prix winner and the returning driver to GPVWC, Jarl Tyen. Hello, Jarl.
Hey, good night.
Now, Jarl, I have not spoken to you in almost 6 years. So in a short time as you can, what have you been up to? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. For the most part, focusing on iRacing. But my R Factor 2 itch kind of came back, and I saw my schedule was open, and I really, really wanted to do a comeback race for Super League, as I really enjoyed this style of racing.
Well, I can tell that. You came back and immediately won. So did you think that was a possibility coming in today, or did your pace take you by surprise?
Considering how much time and effort me and Jeff did on the setup, it was definitely a surprise, but my minimum expectation was a top 5. I will be honest. But I was a bit surprised that not more people was doing a 2-stop. That was my biggest surprise, and I had a doubt that I was going to win the race midway through. I thought they were going to the end on hards, but then I realized their tire wear was much higher than expected, and they were doing actually a 2-stop with 2 hards there at the end.
Yeah, I noticed that for that middle stint there, you were the only driver out of the top 4 or 5 that was on the medium tires. Everyone else came in and went straight to the hards because they weren't sure if they could make it. Were you? I suppose, were you just more convinced that it was going to be a 2-stop, or were you just better at conserving those tires so you knew you could go for a medium?
For me personally, the 2-stop was 100% faster strategy. I was just not quick enough on the hards, and that was the key is obviously to preserve the mediums towards the end of the stint. And yeah, that's pretty much only. I knew it was going to be a soft medium, and that's all I worked towards and practiced towards. And well, the critical thing was to have the balance at the end of the stint. That was the critical thing, and I saw they were struggling a lot at the end of the stint, even on hards.
Fantastic. Now, as well as your first win in 5 years, that is Epic Racing's first win in 5 years. How are the team finding it, and are they giving you a knighthood?
I think Lee is loving it at the moment, but I'm very happy I'm thankful for him to accept me as a one-time stand-in, and I'm grateful for having that opportunity, and grateful for having Jeff as a teammate. He's been fantastic the last 2 weeks. He's been sort of motivated again, as he's not had a steady teammate for a while, and his motivation the last 2 weeks has been great, and he's been really good with setups and just being a good teammate.
Oh yes, and he drove very well today as well. I mean, that must have been a help, seeing him in your mirrors at some point.
Oh yeah, but we practiced a lot together and doing stints and driving together, and our focus was again, focusing on tire wear and strategy, and we were just driving together a lot. We did 2 full race stints together, for example, and it was just a big help. So he's an extremely strong driver.
Well, congratulations, Jarl, and hopefully we'll see you back again. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you, and good night.
Good night. So that was Jarl Tyen, who has picked up his 4th GPWC victory of all time, his 4th Super League victory, that is, and his first years. Fantastic stuff. I'm afraid that's time for. But thank you all very much. Thank you as well to GPVWC for putting on such an awesome show as always, and everyone involved, from Stuart to broadcasters. And talking of broadcasters, I'd like to thank Szymon Frelik for giving you images that you see in front of you, and Ryan Elliott, who's my co-commentator for today. So thank you all very much for being here. The next race will be the Singapore Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time. In the meantime, of course, we will have the junior categories for 2, for Sprint 1, and Super Light, so make sure you keep an eye out on the GPWC channel for that. And we will be back with GPWC Super League action in 2 weeks' time, Singapore Grand Prix. And good night.